All right, welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can follow me on all socials at JKBogan. And today we're going to be talking about the 6-7 Rams and how, as Sean McVay put it, they're going to go out and respond the right way. So let's start it off. I mean, that game yesterday was pretty remarkable to just see the Rams going toe-to-toe with a genuine Super Bowl threat in the Baltimore Ravens on the road. The wind, the rain, going up against Lamar Jackson. We could talk about how, iffy the officiating was without Rob Havenstein from the get-go, Tutu Atwell getting hurt at the beginning of the game, and no Tyler Higbee and Quentin Lake. I thought the Rams just did an outstanding job. Unfortunately, they didn't get the job done, and that's what really everyone is going to focus on, and I understand that. It's a results business, but I'll say this. I think the Rams showed you a lot yesterday that kind of points to the idea that they can definitely run the table. Now, upcoming this weekend, they have the Washington Commanders back at SoFi Stadium. And then on a short week, they are going to go on Thursday Night Football, staying at SoFi Stadium, and they will be playing Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints. And then followed by that, you will see on New Year's Eve, the Rams head to MetLife, where they're outscoring the Giants by about 60 points in their last two meetings there. They will be going to play the Giants on New Year's Eve, and that wraps up the season going into the last week of the year. They will travel back to California and play in San Francisco at Levi's Stadium. I don't know if that game gets flexed to the Sunday night frame. That would be a disaster. Do not want the Rams playing in prime time, but there's a very possible shot that that game does get flexed to prime time, considering what's at stake. So as you can see here, currently the 6-7 Rams, according to the New York Times, predictive model here, have the Rams at 33% chance of making the playoffs. Now, if you've been following along, then I have never once felt the Rams were going to win that Ravens game. Did I think that, it was possible? Like, could the Rams eke it out in any given Sunday scenario? Absolutely. Any team can win any game. These are professional football players. We've seen crazy upsets before. But because I already accounted for this loss going into my prediction about them making the playoffs and going 10-7 before the season and now currently during the season, I think the Rams are in fine shape. I understand it's going to feel like the sky is falling for a little bit. That's just the way it is. It doesn't matter that they lost to the Ravens. I know a lot of the fans will be just upset that they lost, and I get that. I understand it. But at the same time, it's important to realize that this team is not out of it. Their story is not written. They have 4 games left to go, and 3 out of the 4 they're playing against below 500 teams. You look at the Commanders, they have the worst passing defense in the league. Matthew Stafford right now has absolutely heated up. You talk about he's the only quarterback in the NFL, and we'll see what ends up happening today with Jordan Love, but currently he's the only quarterback in the NFL over his last 3 games to throw 3 touchdowns in each game. So pretty great stuff there from Stafford playing at a high level. Cooper Kupp went back over 100 yards, his 3rd 100-yard game of the season. It's a big deal that these guys are getting going. Kyron Williams just had a 100-yard game against one of the best defenses in the league. The question was for a lot of the naysayers out there about Kyron Williams, can he do it against good defenses? Well, he did it back-to-back weeks. He had a pretty solid performance against the Browns, and he had a very good performance against the Ravens on the road in the cold when everyone knew that they're going to try to run the football. So right now, the Rams are finding their stride at the right time. Do not let the loss impact that. Do not let the loss take you out of the feel for this game and this team. Because, look, if they lose any game out of those 5 games left to go, the Browns, the Ravens, the Commanders, the Saints, the Giants, and the 49ers, the best game to lose was probably the Ravens game. It doesn't hurt their home record because that's also a tiebreaker in case that gets down to the nitty gritty. It doesn't hurt their conference record. It doesn't hurt their divisional record. And, wins in common games, the only thing it's really going to affect is the 49ers. And right now, the Rams aren't going to likely make, I don't even think they can win that division still, as the Niners are 10-3. Maybe, but that is very, very unlikely. The point being is that the only team that would actually affect the Seattle Seahawks, and they got blown out by the Ravens, and the Rams have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So really, the Ravens' loss doesn't hurt them. Besides the fact that it puts another loss in the the loss column, it doesn't hurt them in the division. It doesn't hurt them in the conference. That's good. Now, if you lose a game like the Commanders, this is where it kills you. The Commanders wins in common games, conference opponent. I mean, you don't want to lose any of these games to the NFC teams. You really don't want to lose this game. I mean, this game, they're still not even out of the playoffs. So they're playing for their last ditch effort here. I'm going to say the Rams win this game pretty easily. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think the Rams are the better team. I think they're absolutely just peaking at the right time. I think if the Rams played anybody different this past week, they might have won. I mean, they might have beaten the Niners considering the way they played. I think Lamar Jackson is just too hard to stop, and there was no holding penalties or anything like that. So if you're going to allow the Ravens to just hold all game, then unfortunately it's going to make him virtually unstoppable. And for the 5th most penalized offensive line in terms of holding on the year, to not get one holding call, well, you just kind of have to live with it. So the Rams, I have taking down the Commanders. I have them taking down the Saints. They stay at home. It's Thursday night football. I think the Rams are just playing much better than the Saints. This is really good because without even looking at the scenarios, this has set the Rams up to an above 50% odds of making the playoffs just by winning these 2 games, taking care of business. This is not how things go. Things are going to go where teams are going to play when the Rams play, right? So we're not going to see the Rams play 2 games before another team plays 1. But this just goes to show you, without even factoring those in yet, you're at a 55% chance to win. And then the Rams, who just went on the road in Baltimore cross country and gave a Super Bowl contender a run for their money, sent them to overtime. Now you have the Giants, who Sean McVay has absolutely had their number throughout his tenure with the Rams, whether it was at MetLife or that close win that they had at SoFi Stadium, huge interception and the game, for Darius Williams. So obviously I got to take the Rams in that one. The Giants are really right now, we'll see what ends up happening tonight, but they're very much dwindling as far as playoff odds. I don't really think they're much of a threat. So I'm going to take the Rams there. This puts them at 73% going into the 49er game. If they win the 49er game, they're at 99% odds to make the playoffs. This is without anything happening. The point is the Rams really have to take care of business. If they run the table, there's not going to be any need for these odds making and things like that, because end of the day, now they're 10-7. If you look at a Minnesota Vikings team right now, yes, they're 7-6. They got the tough Bengals who are playing really well right now. They got 2 matchups against the Lions, and they have 1 against the Packers. It's not an easy road for the Vikings. It may look great. It goes back to what I was saying. It's going to suck if the Rams lose to the Ravens, and they probably will, but it's going to be a short-term thing as long as they respond the right way, which I believe they're going to. So I do expect these 3 to happen, and believe it or not, I think they go into San Francisco. I think seeing as the fact that they went into Baltimore and they did what they did and they should have won the game, they outplayed the Ravens, I think that just prepared them even more for the 49er game. So I do think the Rams are going to run the table. But what happens if they don't? And here's the thing. This is not a game you want to lose. If you're going to lose one game, this is the game to lose against the 49ers. This doesn't really decide your fate. The Saints are still in the wild card race. The Commanders are, and so are the Giants. Now, very, very unlikely Commanders and Giants are in it, but The Saints right now are on the outside looking in. They no longer have control of their division. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers took that over with a win over the Atlanta Falcons. So this is a huge game right here. If the Rams take care of these three, and even if they drop this 49er game, they still have a 70% chance of making the playoffs. So let's go week in, week out here. We're going to take a look at the playoff predictor as well, but let's start off on this page right now. So the Rams, I'm going to take them beating the Commanders, puts them at 42% odds to make the playoffs. Tonight, I'm just going to take the Packers. I have a weird feeling the Giants can pull this off. They're a weird team. It's Monday Night Football. I mean, I don't know why they would, but their defense has played well at times. And I mean, Tommy DeVito has been better than I expected. Plus, they have Saquon Barkley. We'll see what ends up happening. I think the Packers are playing too well. They are on the road. I'll take the Packers. This game doesn't matter to anything that we're talking about right now. So I'll just take the Dolphins since I think they win, but it doesn't actually affect anything. So say the Packers win, the Rams take down the Commanders next week. That's a 39% chance of making the playoffs. I got news for you. The Vikings are losing this game. I think you look at Jake Browning, the way he's playing, they're getting Joe Mixon involved. You have weapons, and of course, Boyd and Chase and Higgins. I think the Bengals have too much. The Vikings offense looks absolutely pedestrian. The Raiders did not get a turnover. They didn't, force a touchdown. They lost the game 3-0 to this team. Whether it's Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, or Jaron Hall, they're not ready to go up against defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. So I am going to take the Bengals in this one, which puts the Rams up to a 49% chance of making the playoffs. After that, you have the Seattle Seahawks and the Eagles. I'll take the Eagles coming off 2 straight losses. They are a pissed off team right now. They just got blown out back-to-back weeks. I don't like Seattle in this one at all. I know that they played tough, but they just lost 5 straight, and that pretty much puts them out of it because the Rams would have to lose 9 games for the Seattle Seahawks to surpass them. And they right now are 7-7 based on this simulation. This is a fascinating game. The Buccaneers and the Packers. I got to be honest with you. I could see the Buccaneers winning, but it is in Green Bay. I'm going to take the Packers in this one. This does hurt the Rams playoff odds a little bit, but it's still at 45%. Then you have this game against the Falcons and Panthers. I kind of like the Panthers in this game, but we'll just keep it somewhat realistic here. Go with the Falcons. This still has a 46% chance. The Broncos and Lions, right now the Lions are playing bad football, but I'll take them at Ford Field. They got to start righting the ship soon. Things are getting tough. They might even lose the division lead if they don't keep this up. So if they don't stop this. So I do have them winning that game. That'll put them at 47% odds. None of these other games impact the Rams at all. Based on this, I guess just this Bears and Browns game, but it's very minuscule. Now it's going to take the Browns anyway because they're a completely different team in Cleveland. Knocks the Bears out of the playoffs there. Now you have a week 16 matchup against the Saints. Short week, Thursday Night Football. I'm taking the Rams. They're at home. They're a better team. I'm taking the Rams there. The Vikings and Lions. I'm taking the Lions. I think they get it started here. They right the ship beating the Broncos. They just got blown out by the Bears. Something has to give. Jared Goff is not playing well enough to win football games. The Vikings have had a great defense over the last few weeks. It's been why they've won some of the games that they have. But I'm going to take the Lions here. This likely knocks out the Vikings because it sets them up for a pretty tough road ahead. Now you have the Panthers and Packers. I'm just going to take the Packers here. I don't see them losing that game. 73%. You got Seattle and the Titans. I'm going to take Seattle here, even though it is in Tennessee. And then you have the Falcons and Colts. I'm going to take the Falcons at home. This does hurt the Rams playoff odds a little bit, but it's still at 70%. Then you have the Cardinals and Bears. This one really shouldn't matter. I'm going to take the Bears. Might hurt them a little bit, and it didn't hurt them at all. So now we go to week 17. The Rams have a 70% chance of making the playoffs. They're 8-7, and they're feeling good. The Seahawks are pretty much out of it at this point. So you're really going up against the Vikings. That's it. That's who you're facing. You beat the Saints. You beat the Commanders. You're going up against the Vikings. So You don't have a game against them. Keep that in mind. So the Rams now would go up against the Giants here. I have the Rams winning this game. This puts them at an 90% chance of making the playoffs. If the Packers win this game, the Rams clinch. It's that simple. The Rams are going to clinch this spot if the Packers beat the Vikings here based on this scenario. If the Vikings win this game, because the Vikings have a better conference record, because that would be the tiebreaker since there's no head-to-head, the Rams still have a 78% chance of making the playoffs, but the Vikings now push this into week 18. So the Rams can clinch a playoff spot with all this happening by the end of week 17 if this stuff goes down. And this is what you want to, if you're rooting, your rooting guide, so to speak, you want this stuff to happen. You want the Packers losing this game would help, but these games are so much more important. If the Bengals beat the Vikings, this is huge. This other stuff, not as big. Really, it's just at this point, Eagles beating Seattle knocks them out in all likelihood. The Vikings against the Bengals is one of the biggest games. Then week 16, if the Lions can beat the Vikings, the Rams can take care of business against the Saints, and the Rams beat the Giants. Then if the Packers beat the Vikings, that's it. Rams make the playoffs. So it's actually that simple. There are some other variables, but really the Vikings are the biggest threat. Okay. And obviously things can get a little complicated if they lose this game. As I said, going into week 18, now the Lions, if they win before the Rams even play, because this is considered to be a 425 or flexed out game. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But this is a 1:00 game. If the Vikings win this game, the Rams are now in a must-win scenario. They have to beat the 49ers in order to make the playoffs. That would be damning. That would really, really suck. The Vikings essentially can't win this game. This is what the Raiders game did to the Rams. But if the Lions win this, the Rams make the playoffs without even playing against the 49ers. This one's done. So then Vikings win, Rams have to win. If the Rams lose, the Rams miss the playoffs. That's how that works. It's tough. How likely is it that the Vikings are going to lose all of these games? Is it likely that a team loses this many games? I mean, I wouldn't say so, but the Vikings right now have a big offensive identity problem. We don't know what's going to happen with Justin Jefferson, but regardless, this offense has no identity. They won a game 3-0. They really had no business winning that game. They benched Josh Dobbs on the final drive to win the game. So this is how I see it. I do think the Bengals are going to beat the Vikings. I do. So right away, that helps the Rams. I do think the Rams are going to run the table up until the 49er game, in which I do think the Rams beat the 49ers week 18. But the point is, I think there's a very real scenario here. If the Vikings drop this game against the Bengals, then they have the Lions to wrap up the year. The good news here for the Rams, the Lions losing some of these games is going to push them to have to play these games. So this isn't starters are going to be sitting. The Lions week 15 through week 18 are likely going to be playing so they can get proper seeding, so they can keep their momentum building. That's huge. That gives them the upper edge here. Another thing is the Lions defense has been susceptible to getting absolutely picked apart. Justin Fields did it. We saw Jordan Love do it. Who's doing that on the Vikings? Right now, the Vikings offense is absolutely terrible. They just put up 3 points. They won a game 3-0. Lions really have a shot to help the Rams out and move them on. But let's pivot here. And I do think the Rams make the playoffs. I do. So let's pivot here. We got the PFN playoff predictor. So let's throw this in here. We'll say that the Packers win tonight. By the way, if the Giants won tonight, actually, let's go through that real quick. If the Giants win tonight, that definitely doesn't hurt the Rams. There's no scenario where that actually hurts the Rams. I am assuming the Packers are likely going to run the table. They don't play a really tough schedule upcoming. So let's just say the Giants win this. Then the Rams percentage does go up. You're at 39%. Then if the Rams beat the Commanders, you're now hovering over 50%, around 50%. You're at 49. If the Vikings lose to the Bengals, which I think this is a realistic, possibility here, 52. Now the Packers and Buccaneers, I think the Packers win that game, right? Because I don't think they're going to lose 2 straight at that point. And I think the Panthers have a shot at beating the Vikings, or that shot at beating the Falcons, but whatever. Eagles, I think the Eagles beat Seattle. That puts the Rams at 55% going into week 16. They beat the Saints. Now, this is a 71% chance of making the playoffs. The Packers now against the Panthers. I'm going to take the Packers. Wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers won that game. I do think the Packers win out. The Vikings losing this game to the Lions would put the Rams at a 74% chance of making the playoffs. Now, obviously, I think Seattle beats the Titans there. This model doesn't care. You have a 75% chance of making it. And now you go to week 17, and the Rams, based on that loss here now, it puts them at 94%. If the Packers lose to the Vikings, it still stays relatively high at 87. If the Packers beat the Vikings, the Rams are in. So really right now, this game doesn't hurt the Rams or help the Rams as much. It helps them a little bit, but in reality, this isn't going to be your golden ticket. Giants win tonight, great. But you have to keep in mind, the Packers have to lose a few more games after that, and they likely have to beat the Vikings. What you don't want is them splitting and ending up having both tiebreakers over the Rams. That's what you don't want. So let's get into it with the playoff predictor here. I'm going to take the Packers. I'm going to take the Dolphins. Week 15. Take the we'll do all these real quick. Eagles. We'll take the Ravens. Dallas. I'll take the Bills. The Rams. Commanders. Then we got the 49ers. The Texans. We got let's see here. Oh, this is not working too well. Yeah, not a fan of this. Okay. So then the Saints, and then we got the Browns, Dolphins, Packers. And this is just brutal. So Chiefs, Falcons, okay, Raiders, Lions. We'll take the Lions against Denver. We'll take Indy and Cincinnati. So now week 16, what does this do? Well, the Rams now are tied at 7-7 with the Vikings. The Packers are 8-6 based on this. Rams win this, they take over the 7th seed. If the Vikings lose to the Lions, they have the 7th seed now. The Vikings they're now 7-8. So this would be huge. This would be absolutely huge. The Vikings do have to lose. If they're at 7-6 right now and the Rams want to make it at 9-8, then the Vikings can't win one more game. That's really what it comes down to. Like they can only win one more game. Excuse me. If the Rams get in at 10-7, I mean, realistically speaking, they're going to get in. That's just, if they run the table, they're going to get in. I think they run the table, but we're just going over scenarios here. So let's just go through this a little bit, as this thing is so frustrating right now. I'm going to take the 49ers over Baltimore. Eagles. Let's just run through this. We got, Tampa. I do think Seattle takes down Tennessee. The Jets over Washington. Houston over Cleveland. Packers. Falcons. Bills. Bengals. Okay. Now, week 17, this is your playoff picture going into week 17. The Rams would be playing the Eagles based on this. The Lions would have the Packers. The Falcons would have the Cowboys. Now, Cowboys, Lions, this is huge. I'm I'm going to take the Cowboys at home. This, again, is going to force Detroit to have to try and play, because here's the thing, it's not a gimme the rest of the way. I mean, for the most part, I think the Eagles have it wrapped up against Arizona, but this gets a little interesting here. So let's go into it. And I don't think the Lions just don't seem like a team that's going to sit their starters anyway, if I'm being honest with you. So yeah, let's just put this all in here. We got, let's see. Rams beat the Giants. And we got the Jaguars winning that one. Okay. See, Seattle's already 7-8. So they would need the Rams to go 8-9. I do think they win that game, though. Now the 49ers win. Tampa wins that against the Saints. And now this one's huge. I do think the Packers win this game. I think their defense is disgusting right now, playing at a really high level, getting a lot of pressure. Jordan Love is playing better than any quarterback on the Vikings currently. Now if Kirk Cousins was available, I wouldn't have any faith in the Rams making the playoffs based on the way it is right now, because I don't think the Vikings would lose too many games. I think right now the biggest issue is quarterback, and that's just, it's that simple. So then Denver, and then we'll do, kind of feel like Cincinnati would win that game, but we'll go with Kansas City here. So let's just take a look at it. This is week 18. The Rams are still playing the Eagles. Everything is the same except the Bucs have now taken over the 4th seed. Let's see what happens here in week 18. So we look here. God, this is brutal. Appreciate you guys bearing with me here. Oh my God. Okay. So Rams lose this game to the 49ers, and let's just show you what happens based on everything that has happened in this simulation. So now we have Seattle is going to beat the Arizona Cardinals here. I kind of feel like Arizona wins this game, but we'll just say Seattle has it. Baltimore wins that. Tampa beats Carolina. Cincinnati beats Cleveland. Then you have the Lions taking down Minnesota. This is at Ford Field. This is a huge game. Puts them at 12-5. Builds momentum going into the playoffs. The let's see here. The Packers at Lambeau take down Chicago. Houston takes down Indy. We'll say Kansas City, Denver, Buffalo. Picking some road teams here, I guess. Oh, this is so frustrating. Okay. Eagles win this one. They're 14-3. If the Rams win this game, the Rams would play the 49ers in the first round if the Eagles win this game. If the Eagles win, but the Rams lose, the Rams are still 9-8 based on the fact that the Vikings have now gone 7-10 based on the fact that they have won only one game the rest of the year. No, they've lost every game. So they literally lost all 4 games. Is that likely? I really do think it's likely. Would have helped if the Raiders, won the game, but they did not. So we'll see what ends up happening. But they don't seem like a team that's really trending right now in the right direction. Struggling on offense. This is one I'll take the Saints. Really ugly division right there. Dallas, and then So this is how this matches up if the Rams lose. As long as the Vikings lose, if the Vikings win 8 games, the Rams are in. If the Vikings win 7 games, the Rams are definitely in. If the Vikings win 9 games, the Rams would likely be out. The Packers can really run the table here. I'm just being honest with you. They have a pretty easy schedule set up. Now, if the Vikings win this game against Detroit, it doesn't change anything. It just knocks Detroit out of the first place position in the division. So that's something to keep in mind. The Lions are playing for something here. They're going to have to fight off the Packers. If the Packers lose tonight, however, then it gets a little interesting, because if the Packers lose tonight, the Rams could be fighting for that 6th seed. And the reason I say that is because look at like week 15, if they were to drop to Tampa, now you have this game week 18. If the Rams end up winning this game against the 49ers in week 18, and there you go. The Rams take over that 6th seed, and we secure the Jared Goff versus Matthew Stafford Ford Field Return Bowl. I think this is really the only way that can happen. I don't think Green Bay wants to play the 49ers, but it is fascinating how this can realistically happen. Like, this is not out of the question. Packers are getting good at the right time. They also, how many teams have they really played recently? They played the Rams without Matthew Stafford, with a quarterback that's no longer on the roster or any roster, I believe. He might be on, I think he's on the Jets now, actually. But yeah, it just goes to show you these next 4 weeks are going to be absolutely imperative. If you're not winning football games in December, you're probably not playing in January. So look, as fun as it was, as impressed as I was, the Rams still lost that game against the Ravens. There's no more of these moral victories from here on out. That 49er game has to be a win. Now, they can still make the playoffs without it, but that's not the mentality. And the mentality shouldn't be, man, I hope the 49ers sit their starters. Because if you don't think that the Rams can beat the 49ers, then they don't belong in the playoffs. If the 49ers are that damning for the Rams, when everything that they have on the line is on the line, then the Rams shouldn't be in the playoffs. If the Rams can't beat the Saints, shouldn't be in the playoffs. If the Rams can't beat the Giants, Commanders, shouldn't be in the playoffs. So that's really what it comes down to. Rams are playing at the right time. It's pretty obvious that they're peaking at the right time. The Packers are peaking at the right time. Dallas is peaking at the right time. The Eagles are not peaking at the right time, but I think a lot of it came down to scheduling. They had 3 games in 12 days. I think they're really exhausted. The 49ers had that mini bye week. I think they really took advantage of that against Philly, and they're rolling. The Lions are not peaking at the right time, but they have 4 games to correct that. And I don't even know what to say about that division, the NFC South, because, man, it's just bad. I think Tampa's going to end up winning. I think Baker Mayfield has been the best quarterback in the NFC South, and I don't think it's remotely close. Derek Carr's been a disappointment. Desmond Ridder, he's on, he's off. Most of the time he's off. I think Tampa probably ends up winning that division. But yeah, and if we're going based on this, predicting the playoff games to wrap up this show, I'll take Kansas City there. I'll take the Texans. I think that'd be brutal, but I think I'll take the Texans over the Bills, and I'll take the Dolphins over the Browns. Then I'm going to take that's tough. I'm going to take the Ravens here, and I'm going to take the Dolphins because they don't have any receiving threats. I think Jalen Ramsey makes them a different team. So I'm going to take the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl. Nothing really changed my opinion about them yesterday. They are still that team. They are very good, very low margin for error. The 49ers beat the Packers. The Rams beat the Lions. I think that's an awful matchup for Jared Goff and the Lions. I think Dallas beats Tampa. Rams, I think, could beat the Eagles, but I'm going to take the Eagles. I think the 49ers beat Dallas. I think the Eagles get the 49ers in Philly. And I think the Ravens win the Super Bowl. That's how I feel. But I think the Rams getting to the divisional round of the playoffs in a retooling season is something that you will take all day. If you're a Rams fan and you're watching this, you will take this all day. Plus, you will also take all day knowing if the Rams do end up going to the playoffs, winning these games, a lot of these guys are going to be back next year. This is huge for this team. They are ahead of schedule, and I think yesterday proved that, but it also goes to show you how important coaching is. Furthermore, I'll say this. If they end up, when it's all said and done, if the Ravens do end up winning the Super Bowl, it just makes that loss to the Ravens even more impressive. The fact they went toe-to-toe with the Super Bowl champions. But we'll see. A lot of games left to play. We've seen wacky stuff before. I mean, who's to say we don't see something like this and we don't see something like this? You don't know. And that's the beauty about the NFL. If the Rams are playing at this level, you can say they don't have depth and all that. I don't know. I think they're pretty deep. When we just saw what Davis Allen can do, we saw Puka Nacua go from a wide receiver 4 to a wide receiver 1 overnight. They have guys all over the place. And really what it comes down to is the next man up. This point in the season is not crippling them. It crippled them earlier in the season, but they're learning a lot about themselves. Now, do I think the Rams win the Super Bowl? No, I don't think this is their year, and it's okay. I think this is the year you go in, you win as many games as you can. Then next year, you have your first round pick back. Doesn't matter where you're picking. You have your first round pick back. You can use that to accumulate more picks. You can pick a first round talent. There's a lot of options there, more salary cap. I really think the Rams are setting themselves up to return to the Super Bowl in either 2024 or 2025. I really do think that they've put themselves in that position, but I really do think they need this playoff experience. It doesn't matter if they win a game in the playoffs or lose the first game. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is finishing this season strong, which I believe they can do. They should be in the playoffs. And furthermore, what matters to me is them getting this experience with these young guys. Kyron Williams has never played in a playoff game. Would be huge for him to get going in one. You look at what playoff experience can do for a team. And I mean, let's be honest here. How many of these quarterbacks, as great as Brock Purdy's been this year, and he's been great in general in this bracket, here are the quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl. Okay. You have Patrick Mahomes. You have Russell Wilson in Denver. Joe Flacco actually in Cleveland, believe it or not. Tua is not. CJ Stroud is not. Josh Allen hasn't. So that's it. So you have Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Flacco. Those are your Super Bowl winning quarterbacks in the AFC. In the NFC, Brock Purdy has not. Jordan Love has not. Jared Goff has not. Baker Mayfield hasn't. And Dak hasn't. That means the only Super Bowl winning quarterback, of course, Lamar Jackson hasn't, and Jalen Hurts. The only Super Bowl winning quarterback in the NFC, there's actually two, although one didn't play in the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz, of course, is the one I'm talking about, the second one, and Matthew Stafford. I'm just saying, Super Bowl winning coaches. I mean, you got Andy Reid here, right? Sean Payton. After that, that's it. Oh, John Harbaugh. So John Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Sean Payton. The NFC side, not LaFleur, not Shanahan, not Bowles. Oh, Bowles is a defensive coordinator on that team. So yeah, not Bowles. Not Campbell, Mike McCarthy. So then you have not Sirianni. So it would be Mike McCarthy, Sean McVay, and that's it. Mike McCarthy and Sean McVay. And then on the other side, it's Harbaugh, Reed, and Payton. So sometimes it's fun to look at it that way. The Jalen Ramsey Bowl would be exciting. Now, do I think this happens? No. But would I be surprised? Would I really be surprised if this Rams team found a way to cross into the Super Bowl? Would I really be surprised if they turned a 5-12 season with, quite honestly, a nightmare scenario, everyone getting hurt? Would I be surprised if they turned that around after getting rid of Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, Bobby Wagner, Allen Robinson? To be honest with you, no. You know why? Because this has been Sean McVay's tenure. This has been his tenure. He's been doing what people don't expect him to do. No one expected as people called it, the frat boy, who's 30 years old, who's younger than most players on the roster, to go out, get the confidence and the trust of Wade Phillips, a legendary defensive coordinator, bring him onto the staff, turn around a Rams team that went 4-12, take him to the playoffs. I mean, no one expected that. No one expected that. I mean, I had him at 11-5 and making the playoffs, but we're talking about the big picture here. And Sean McVay wasn't well received by a lot of people. People thought he was unqualified. That was my guy, but people thought he was unqualified. Then you look at 2018. Who would have thought the second-year coach was going to take a team that has been just absolutely mediocre since really the Greatest Show on Turf disbanded and was going to take them to the Super Bowl? Who would have thought? And who would have thought that it would have taken him until 2021 to 2022 season to win the Super Bowl with a new quarterback? And now here he is You talk about the F them picks. You talk about with the rookie quarterback contract. And now they're trying to do this in a retooling season. I'm never counting out Sean McVay. I'm just saying, wouldn't be surprised. Whatever the Rams do won't shock me. I'm just not picking them to win a Super Bowl this year. But make no mistake about it. This is very, very good stuff. This is stuff that you should feel very good about. This is, I mean, let's just be honest here. It is okay to be very excited for the future with this team. It's okay to look forward to 2024 while enjoying this season. The future is very bright in LA. And obviously I'm aware Aaron Donald's not going to play forever. Cooper Kupp's not going to play forever. And Matthew Stafford is 35 and you will need another quarterback at some point. But as of right now, the future is still very bright in LA. There's a lot of key players that are playing at the right, getting good at the right time. Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Puka Nacua, now Davis Allen getting involved. Kyron Williams. I mean, there's just so much to like right now with the Rams, the coaching staff and everything. As long as Sean McVay doesn't go anywhere, which I don't think he's going to, but as long as he doesn't leave, they have a shot any year to turn some heads. And I think that's really what they did this year. But that's all I got for you guys. A lot. I understand. I appreciate you guys hanging out. And I'll see you in the next one. A special thanks as always to Bleacher Report. And you guys can go follow me on all socials, including Bleacher Report's app at JK Bogan. I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.